pizza verse strong. Motherfucking strong.
Bambi Palermo running around pizza verse. Fuck you and pizza verse.
Fucking pizza verse strong, motherfucker. Fuck Tony Pizza.
Well, pizza verse strong.
A man opens the door to his 1966 seafoam green Buick Riviera. He calmly sits in the driver's seat and starts the engine. As the silky smooth V8 fires up, the man shifts it into drive and calmly cruises his way southeast to Avenue U towards Marine Park. The winter snow falls gently, leaving a blanket of crisp white snow. With the streets deathly silent and dimly lit by battered old street lamps, the smell of death wafts across the mean streets of Brooklyn, New York. A lifeless body lies in the trunk of the car, the latest in a long line of victims to follow. He's unfazed by the murder he's just committed for his boss, Christy Tick Funari. The man is cementing his reputation in the New York underworld. In the decades to follow, the mention of his name would send shivers down the back of the toughest gangsters in the Italian-American mob. He would become one of the most cunning, ruthless, and psychotic mafia figures ever to have walked the streets of Brooklyn. His name is Anthony Gaspipe Casso. Casso caught the eye of Lucchese captain Christopher Funari in the early 1960s. He started his criminal career in the New York mob as a loan shark. A protege of Funari, Casso later became involved in gambling rackets and proved that he was a capable moneymaker, as well as being a cold and efficient enforcer. Numerous stories have circulated on how Casso got the nickname Gaspipe. Casso himself claimed it was from his father, a mob enforcer who used a gas pipe to threaten union dissidents and other victims. However, others say it was because his father hooked up illegal gas connections for local Brooklyn residents. Casso steadily rose through the ranks of Cosa Nostra. The up-and-coming gangster was formally inducted into the Lucchese crime family as a made man in 1974. And from there his reputation grew as a fierce enforcer and moneymaker for the Lucchese crime family. It was through Lucchese family captain Christy Tick Funari that Casso would meet another feared Russian gangster named Marat Balagula. Marat Balagula was a Russian mobster who had moved to the Brighton Beach area of New York from the Russian city of Orenburg. He was a feared gangster with a reputation for violence. Balagula was also a savvy businessman whose enterprises included restaurants, health clubs, and over 100 gas stations up and down the East Coast. Alongside these businesses, Balagula also ran darker rackets such as arms dealing in Sierra Leone, blood diamonds, and narcotics. In the mid-1980s, however, the Long Island faction of the Colombo family became interested in Balagula's operations after hearing his gasoline business was bringing in hundreds of millions of dollars. The vast amounts of money being made were too hard to ignore, and the Colombos began to muscle in on his business. Balagula reached out to Christy Tick Funari for help. After explaining the situation that the Colombo family were trying to extort his business, Funari offered Balagula his protection in return for a cut of the profits. After some haggling over percentages, they finally came to an agreement. 2 cents of every gallon of gas would go to the mob instead of going to the government for federal and state taxes. This would be a staggering amount of cash considering how much gas was being pumped from Balagula's numerous stations. Funari explained to the Russian gangster, "We will straighten this out with the other families, and if anyone tries to interfere with your business, let me know, and Anthony here," pointing to Casso, "will take care of it." Over the next few days, sit-downs were organized. Vicorina represented the Colombo family, and Vincent the Chin Gigante, boss of the Genovese family, represented their interests. Both families readily agreed and appointed designated bagmen from their families to collect their share of the take. As time went by, Vicorina asked that the Gambino family be brought in for a slice of the action, and they all agreed. The Bonanno family weren't cut in on the deal as they'd lost their commission seat after the Donny Brasco saga. The gasoline racket would bring Casso closer to Balagula, who after a while introduced Casso into a lucrative diamond operation in Sierra Leone. It didn't take long for word to reach the Russian underworld that Balagula was paying off the Italians for protection. Russian gangsters were no strangers to violence, and unlike their Italian rivals, were not bound by any parameters. Nothing was off the table, including targeting the families of their enemies. One of those figures was a man named Vladimir Reznikov. He had emigrated to Brooklyn from Russia via Israel and quickly set up his business of murder. Reznikov was a bona fide psychopath and a feared killer. He had a fierce reputation of killing entire families of people who he'd felt had crossed him. Even the tough Marat Balagula feared him. Reznikov drove to Balagula's office on Avenue U in the Midwood section of Brooklyn. Without hesitation, he took out his AK-47 and let loose a volley of shots, destroying the office, killing Balagula's close friend and associate, and wounding several female workers. He then strolled out, got into his car, and drove away. The message was clear: I don't care who you're with. Pay up or prepare for the consequences. To further cement his message of intent, Reznikov's next move was to go to Balagula's nightclub, named Odessa. He brazenly parked his car right out front, ignoring the burly bouncers who half-heartedly tried to stop him as he made his way into the club. The bouncers knew Reznikov's reputation of being a psychotic killer and wanted nothing to do with him. Even a minor infraction would be met with a response of such devilish intentions that would leave any street gangster shaking in their boots. He had a very well-deserved reputation as a stone-cold killer, a sadistic butcher, and Jack the Ripper-like madman. He soon found Balagula. They went to the club's office. Suddenly, without hesitation, Reznikov shoved a cocked 9mm Beretta to Balagula's head and demanded $600,000. Balagula knew Reznikov was deadly serious. Any hints of non-compliance would be met with a chilling response. Balagula could see his life flash before his eyes as the threatening tone of Reznikov's voice resonated between the walls of his office. This was no empty threat. "And," Reznikov shouted, "I want in. I want a piece of the action." "No problem. Come tomorrow and you'll have the money," Balagula assured, trying to muster as much reassurance in his response as possible. "Mess with me and you're dead. You and your whole family. I swear I'll kill your wife as you watch. You understand?" "I understand," Balagula said in a shaky tone. "Tomorrow, Reznikov shouted angrily. He then left, leaving the veteran gangster trembling in utter fear. In panic, the first thing Balagula did was to call Anthony Casso. After the call, his chest tightened up and he gasped for air. The stress of the situation caused him to keel over and have a heart attack. Shortly after, Casso arranged to see Balagula at his home. He found him surrounded by physicians and heart specialists. Money was no object, so Balagula bought the best help he could. He looked to Casso to solve his big problem, the one that could lift the unbearable weight of Reznikov's threats off his shoulders. Casso listened in silence to his friend's story. As far as he was concerned, Reznikov's actions were a personal insult to Casso. By challenging Balagula, Reznikov was shitting on Casso's doorstep and asking him to pay for it. Casso told Balagula, "Call Reznikov and tell him you have the money, and tell him to come and collect it from the club tomorrow, and we'll take care of the rest." "You're sure? This guy is an animal. It was him that used a machine gun in the office." Balagula said, distressed at the thought of the carnage Reznikov had caused. "Don't concern yourself. I promise we'll take care of him. Okay?" Casso said in a reassuring tone. Balagula felt a sudden calmness, sensing that Gaspipe had the situation in hand, and began to relax. He knew that Gaspipe was a fearless killer with a reputation that reached the corners of all 5 boroughs in New York. "You have a photo of him?" Casso asked. "And what car does he drive?" Reznikov's days were numbered. Casso selected renowned killers to dispose of Reznikov. The 2 men were part of one of the most bloodiest crews in mafia history. They were Joey Testa and Anthony Center, once part of the feared DeMeo crew, a strong-arm faction of the Gambino family. Although not related to one another, they were known as the Gemini Twins. Named after DeMeo's club, the Gemini Lounge, a club where people were summoned and would mysteriously vanish like they never existed. DeMeo, with his band of psycho killers, would lure unsuspecting victims to the club, shoot them in the face, wrap a towel around their head, and then have them stabbed in the heart to stop the blood flow. It was a truly macabre and gruesome scene. The bodies would then be hung above the bathtub and drained of blood, after which DeMeo would use his skills as an ex-butcher to slice up the bodies and place them into numerous garbage bags. The remains would then be picked up and then disposed of at the Fountain Avenue dump. It was truly a sick and gruesome operation. The twins watched Reznikov with the same diligence as a pair of lions hunting gazelle. But Reznikov was no gazelle. The Russian gangster would be more than willing to trade bullets with the twins, and he wasn't concerned if innocent civilians got in the way. The pair saw Reznikov pull up, and with the plates and photo they had, confirmed it was him. They waited patiently. The hit had all been planned out carefully. Joey was going to be the triggerman. Anthony, the wheelman. He'd pick up Joey and make their getaway. A crash car would follow behind to block any potential pursuit. The getaway had been carefully planned. Their route would take them to the Belt Parkway a few blocks away and then east. They would quickly blend into the fast-flowing traffic towards Canarsie, their home turf. Reznikov's car emerged abruptly in front of the Odessa nightclub. Eager to collect the money, he stormed in through the front doors of the club, but Balagula was nowhere to be found. Seething, the Russian madman returned to his car in a fit of rage. This time, he intended to use the 9mm stuffed in his waistband. Balagula would be the one on the receiving end of that rage. Reznikov intended to go to Balagula's house and show him how he gained his fearsome reputation, but this time, blood would be shed. It was almost as if the whole episode was in slow motion. As Reznikov returned to his vehicle and opened the door, Joey Testa made his move, stepping out of the car and making fast and deliberate steps towards the unsuspecting Russian. The adrenaline was pumping hard through Testa's veins as he drew a 9mm Beretta from his waistband. He took aim at Reznikov and started squeezing the trigger in quick succession, the shots hitting the Russian in the head, neck, and upper torso. Anthony's center pulled up. Joey got in. They went right on Coney Island Avenue and were soon speeding east on the belt. The job was done, in cold and calculated fashion. It was the end of the feared and psychotic Russian madman Vladimir Reznikov. Casso was soon called at Christie Tick's Club the 19th hole. All had gone to plan, and Reznikov was history. He smiled. Justice had been done, in typical Casso fashion. Swift and without mercy.